Tired of bloating, fatigue and sluggish digestion? Meet your gut's new best friend, NutriHealth 365's microbiome supplement. Restore balance, boost immunity, and feel amazing from the inside out. Smart delayed release capsules, real results. Gut health just got personal.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Wednesday's episode of Trending. Today we're going to be talking about another knife attack in England. We're going to talk about Israel bombing Gaza again, and now we've got China flexing their muscles. Welcome to Trending. Thank you so much for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen. As always, it's brought to you in association with NutriHealth 365. The link is in the description below. Okay, let's start off in England. Chaos town. Dog walker dies in triple stabbing as arrest made. A dog walker has died. Another man has been seriously injured in a triple stabbing in West London. It's beautiful London, isn't it? The 49-year-old, who's been named locally as Wayne Broadhurst, was treated by paramedics but died at the scene. A second man, 45, was hospitalised with life-changing injuries, and a boy, 14, sustained non-life-threatening or life-changing stab wounds, police said. An Afghan national, 22, was tasered and arrested on suspicion of murder. I don't think it's a case of suspicion, ladies and gentlemen, because there's videos of it absolutely everywhere. It's pretty horrible, pretty grim watching, to be fair. And I didn't watch it out of like some sick, it literally came up in my timeline. I was like, what's going on? Oh my goodness me. This is England. The Home Office confirmed the arrested man entered the UK in a lorry in November 2020. Was granted asylum and leave to remain in 2022. He does not live in Home Office accommodation. In other words, me and you aren't paying for his hotel bill. It's not being treated as terrorism. Now, whether it's terrorism or not, I don't know. In the sense of they're saying that they don't know whether the guy knew the victims or whatever. I don't remember that kind of line of questioning in any other attacks. It's immediately terrorism when it's other attacks. I think we're getting to the point now, ladies and gentlemen, where it's kind of important and it's terrorism if a minority is attacked and killed, but if a minority does the attacking and killing, then maybe they knew him. Maybe they had a row in Tesco's. What is going on? Like, I'm 43 years old, ladies and gentlemen, so, in the greater scheme of things, I'm not that old, but I can very clearly remember it wasn't that long ago when this didn't happen. And it certainly didn't happen regularly. When attacks like this did occur, it was a big deal. Now it's like, it's Tuesday, isn't it? It's Tuesday in London. Honestly, the country's been destroyed, and it's been destroyed intentionally. And this is the kind of Rubicon that people, I think, are starting to come up towards and thinking about crossing now. It used to be bad things happen everywhere. Then it sort of got to a point where it was like, okay, maybe this is quite a regular thing. All right, well, it's incompetence. It's what happens. It's what happens when you have incompetent people in government, and then the next government comes in. It's sort of happening no matter who's in charge, isn't it? Well, maybe, yeah, because they're not actually in charge. And so people are actually, a lot have crossed the Rubicon, but some are coming to that point now. And they're starting to ask themselves, is this being done intentionally to destroy the nation? Yes. Yes, it is. And so is everything else. So is everything else in terms of the cost of living, your ability to heat your home, all these things, all these increased taxes while you're spaffing money off to Ukraine. All this stuff is being done intentionally. Immigration is the biggest one. We're literally an island. If we were a castle, a fortified castle, we've literally got a moat. And it's a massive one, actually. Yet, Don't worry about it. He's in a lorry. And not only is he in a lorry, but he's then allowed, so they know he came over in a lorry. It's not like he's come over in a truck, he's jumped out at the services, grabbed himself a bacon sandwich and legged it into a forest, never to be seen again until he appears stabbing people in London. They know who he is. And that begs another question. Why is it the authorities always know who the person is, whether it be a terrorist or whether they don't label this as terrorism? They always know who they are. So I look at this and I think, right, destroying a nation is very much the same in terms of how you can do it as, say, killing a president, right? That's going to sound weird. You're like, what's he on about? Well, think about it. If I want to kill a president, do I have to shoot that president myself? Can I hire someone else to do it? Well, you know, if I do it myself, I'm of course, you know, implicating myself and risking the death penalty or whatever else to come back on me. If I pay someone else to do it, there again, there's a little trail, isn't there, that will come back to me. Plus, that's a weird conversation. All right, mate, you don't know me, but here's 20 quid, you fancy? Like, do you know what I mean? Whereas if I have the ability to control that president's security, for instance, well, it's easy, isn't it? And you'll see throughout history, whether it be JFK, Robert Kennedy Sr., there were changes in their security protocol just before they died. So it's quite easy, really, in that sense. You don't actually have to do it yourself. You just basically facilitate it. You allow it to happen. You purposely pull the guard down. And then you apply that logic to what's happened in this country. So if I'm a doorman, I'm loving my analogies today. If I'm a doorman on a nightclub and my goal is, for many and various reasons, to have it kick off in that nightclub behind me. I want it to kick off in there, right? I've got some order in my hand and I need the chaos for me to enact that order. Right, so I want chaos in the nightclub. And I'm stood on the door. So what do? I mean, I can go in there and kick off. It's pretty obvious it's me. I can bung someone a few quid to go in and kick off. Again, there's a trail that comes back to me. Or, do you know what else I could do? I just abandon the door. I just abandon the door and walk away. And law of averages tells you that at some point it's going to kick off in there. And I tell you what else increases those averages is if I've spotted a few people in the queue, because they always know who the buggers are, I've spotted some people in the queue that I know are very likely to kick off. And I just allow them in. And that nightclub is called the United Kingdom, or rather the not so United Kingdom. And if you go further back in terms of, you know, Afghanistan and Syria and Libya, just thinking about the official story of the Manchester bombing, obviously, you know, tied into Libya. The West has caused absolute chaos. And when I say the West, I'm not talking about me, you, and your grandma. I'm talking about the governments of the West and the intelligence agencies of the West. And you can go all the way back to France and Britain destroying the Middle East and everything that came out of that. So we've created the problem as nations, governments, like I say, not me, you, and your grandma. We've created those issues that have facilitated that mass immigration, that have festered that anger and hatred within certain people. And then we've allowed it to just walk in to the nightclub. And now everyone's running around going, oh my goodness me, how is this allowed to happen? Well, you allowed it to happen. The immigration is intentionally being allowed to happen. Like I say, you've literally got a moat around your country. It's very, very easy. These people are not coming over the Irish Sea in dinghies. Wouldn't survive. They're coming over one very small area. You could quite easily police that. It's a piece of cake. But they don't want to. And this isn't me going in on Starmer and Labour as much as I despise them, because the Tories didn't do it either. Tories did nothing. They will almost certainly, you know, try and jump on this. Oh my goodness me, you know, Well, at the end of the day, he came into the country when the Tories were in government, and it was the Tories that allowed him to stay. Also, let's not forget that the Tories allowed 25,000 Afghans into this country legally, then lied about it. These are the same Tories that are now jumping on the grooming gang bandwagon. Where's the inquiry? Where's the inquiry into the grooming gangs? Where was the inquiry when you were in charge for 14 years? Nowhere. So another part of this is it's destroying the uni party. And you would think that actually, well, that's a good thing. That's a good thing, right? Well, it depends. It depends if the third arse cheek, i.e. reform, are as legit as they claim to be. I don't believe they are. I believe it's Trump 2016 play all over again, which I'll come to later on. Now, people will look at this and go, right, okay, well, why would they purposely destroy their country? Why would they allow this to happen? Why would they allow their citizens to be stabbed to death in the street? Well, why was October 7th allowed to happen? Why was 9/11 allowed to happen? Hell, why was Pearl Harbor allowed to happen? Because they will sacrifice their own people and not give a second thought, mate. They could not care less. And this is the thing that people struggle with the most. They wouldn't do that. No, you wouldn't do that. The people that are making decisions, and a lot of their, narcissistic sociopath puppets, they are psychos. Like, they're proper cray-cray. So the problem that we have as, overwhelmingly decent people is that we can't quite get our head round how this could be. Why would someone allow to do this? Why would they allow this to happen? Well, because you're looking at it from how you would judge. And your judge is, I wouldn't allow people to get killed in the street. No, because you're not a nutcase. Another part of this, and I've seen this question asked as well, actually, because obviously this happened yesterday and it was all over social media. I'm not seeing that many political voices reaching for the microphone, to be honest. I've not seen a Cobra meeting be called. I've not seen Starmer rush back from whatever he's up to at the moment. Whoever's boot he's polishing. And that's a valid question, isn't it? Does it not matter when it's the natives? Like I said earlier, it's a problem when minorities, like I'm going to put my cards on the table, it's a problem when anyone's killed, no matter who they are or where they're from, what their religion is, what their sexuality is, what the colour of their skin is, what the favourite football team is. That is irrelevant. Killing's wrong. Full stop. So why then, say with the synagogue attack in Manchester, when that happened, you had 2 people killed, horrifically killed. Starmer flies back, instant Cobra meeting. Right. We need to sort this. What's going on? Nothing. And people might say, oh, well, come on, it's pretty soon, isn't it? It only happened yesterday. Okay, well, let's apply it to Southport then. So in Southport, you had a complete psychopath waltz into a dance class of kids dancing to, I think it was a Taylor Swift dance class, stabs everyone in there, including the parents and the tutors or whatever, teachers, dance teachers. 3 of these poor young kids die. Where was the Cobra meeting? Where was Starmer flying back from? And in fact, there was a Cobra meeting. A week later, once the riots had started. The Cobra meeting was called in reaction to the general public in Britain saying, I've had enough of this. That warranted a Cobra meeting. The killing of these kids, well, no, nothing, sorry. Sorry, I'm playing Football Manager at the moment. So then it becomes a legitimate question. Why is it that some people matter in this country more than others? And the people at the bottom of the pile are the natives. Why is that? Well, part of it, I'm afraid, is to get this reaction, actually. It's to wind us up. It's to make us angry. because then that creates more of a powder keg. Because they want the powder keg. Like, I've had conversations with people like, well, yeah, but they don't want a civil war. Mate, they want a civil war. It's exactly what they want. It's the answer to their dreams. We kick off, we take to the streets, not in civil non-compliance or anything like that, but we start throwing Molotov cocktails at coppers and we kick off. That gives them carte blanche to push in emergency legislation and do what the hell they want. And that's a psycho's dream, ladies and gentlemen. And that's why it's so difficult, because it's meant to be difficult. Because on one hand, I don't want to stay calm about this. 14-year-olds being knifed in the streets of this country. I don't want to stay calm about that. I want to get very, very angry. But I know they want me to get angry. And they want me to react from that emotive anger. Because then you're not thinking logically, you're lashing out. Whether it be verbally, saying something that lands you in prison, or physically that lands you in prison. And gives them the ability to bring in legislation to crack down on civil unrest. Unrest they've caused. But at the same time, as angry as I am about this, and the state of this country in general, like I've said many times, I'm not a bulldog tattoo guy, but I am an Englishman and I do love the land that I'm from. My kids were born here. I care about it. And, you know, social media might be divided and full of hate a lot of the time, and it probably skews your view of reality somewhat. But when you meet people in the shops and you meet people when you're out walking and you meet people in the pub, this country's full of decent people. Just want to get on. And we're being bombarded, and it's really quite frustrating. Because not only is it making us angry, but it's dividing us, and that division and anger is then giving them more opportunities to bring in things that they want to bring in, like digital ID, among other things. Because I'll tell you what, people comment all the time about the fact that Britain is so close to going, and it is in many ways. But as soon as it goes like that, the powder keg goes, as soon as it goes, you don't think they're ready and waiting? With all the answers for that chaos they've caused. Of course they are. And digital ID and everything that attaches onto that will be part of it. I'll be very surprised if the government doesn't jump on this in terms of digital ID. I understand your anger, ladies and gentlemen. But here's one I made earlier. And you'll have a few people that will go for it. The other part of this as well, and I made a video about this the other day, in terms of the trolling and the introduction of other infrastructure, is the release of the migrant that raped the woman or sexually assaulted the woman and the 14-year-old kid down in Epping. Obviously, that led to the whole, civil unrest in the area there around the Bell Hotel and all that kind of stuff. Guy gets found guilty, gets a year in prison, which is already trolling. Two people that are there protesting these sexual assaults, they get 2 years in prison. We're double trolling now. Then they accidentally release him. So there's about 88,000 people in prison in Britain. And that's the one they accidentally release. Are you having a laugh? So that again creates anger. Now we're in a point where they're blaming human error for his release. Well, let me just think. Imagine if it wasn't down to humans then. Imagine if we had facial recognition and some form of digital ID, and therefore it was basically AI, because AI never makes a mistake at all. It's humans. We're the problem. Then we could introduce that into prisons, and therefore these mistakes wouldn't happen. And most of the people that would oppose that tend to be the same sort of people, overwhelmingly. There is a huge crossover of people that also have a problem with mass immigration. Well, then, so you get them on side. And another element to this is no one's going to say anything about the civil liberties and the rights and all this kind of stuff when it comes to inmates, because no one's got skin in the game for prisoners. So you introduce certain things that you want in terms of legislation, but you use it and focus it on the undesirables. So then people go, yeah, well, I don't care. These are wrong in any way. Well, yeah, but it will get used against you in the future. That's how it rolls. They did the same with the DNA spray. Spraying DNA on the skin of people that couldn't be washed off for months, so that they had basically a tracker on them, so that they could. Who do they use that for? Football hooligans. Why? Because no one cares about football hooligans. Ain't no one going to stick up for football hooligans. They bring that in for primary school kids, there's riots. So they bring in certain things, and they will certainly bring in reform when it comes to the prison service as a result of the accident, not really accident, release of this guy. I think another element, like I made a little slip of the tongue then when in terms of reform. I mean, that works both ways. I think we're at a point now where Labour, to me, feel like they're cooked. I don't know about you, but they feel like they're cooked. And the Tories, you know, they've not redeemed themselves since being cooked at the last election. So you've lost the uni party. So who does that leave? Well, you know, some smaller parties are making marginal gains. The Greens, for instance. So, you know, I don't believe for 1 minute they'll get in, but if they did, you get the climate change stuff. So the establishment's win-win anyway. What they want, I believe, is reform. I think that's what they want. Because I think they need the people that want change, that are against mass immigration and the way that our country has gone to the dogs, not just because of mass immigration, by the way. There's multiple reasons for that, for what's happening to this country, and it's all being done intentionally. Immigration is an element of it, but it's not the whole. But the people that overwhelmingly have a problem with mass immigration and would probably go for reform as a result of that and turn their back on the uni party are the same people overwhelmingly that are against the digital ID, facial recognition, digital dystopia that Labour's peddling. So how do you get those people to agree to it? You have a situation where because there's so much tribal nonsense around, when their side's pushing it, they'll go for it. Saw it with Trump. Look at Trump now in America. I mean, let's have it right. The amount of times I see things coming out of America now and I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, if Biden did that or if Harris did that, you'd be going absolutely mad. But instead, you've got a bright red baseball cap on that says it's okay when we do it. And it will be the same potentially with reform. So if they come in, say Labour are absolutely cooked, say digital ID becomes his poll tax moment and it destroys him as it destroyed Thatcher. That's if the Ukrainian male escorts aren't used to destroy him. I still think that's on the back burner in terms of the media exposure of it. Then in comes reform. Reform, as all governments do when they come in, go, oh, it's worse than we thought. See, we had all these plans in our manifesto, didn't we? You voted for that manifesto. Yeah, you did. Yeah. Oh, this is awkward. Well, now we're in power. We've seen the books. There's a black hole. There's a gazillion-pound black hole. Turns out we can't do any of those things that we wanted to do that got you to vote for us. Oh, it's annoying, isn't it? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, well, on the upside, I mean, we're in power now, aren't we? So you won because you voted for it. So you won, so you can still mock your friends with blue hair. Yeah. It's just you're not going to get any of the things you voted for. Labour just did exactly the same thing. Tories before them. It's what they do. It's what every party does when they come in. They lie themselves into power and then they go, oh, sorry, mate. Didn't realise how bad it was until we got into power. And I believe that they'll do the same when it comes to digital ID. They'll probably rename it. They'll give it a different name. They'll give it something patriotic as a name, try and hoodwink folk. They'll come in and go, oh, mate, we didn't realise how bad it was in terms of, you know, knowing where these migrants are. They're not in hotels anymore. They're out all over the country. buying goodness knows what, from knives to guns to fertilizer for bombs to bomb primary schools. God, what are we going to do? We need some form of surveillance, digital infrastructure, so we know who everyone is and where everyone is. And I know it sounds like it's what Labour were pushing, but we're not Labour. We're different. You can trust us with it. Trust us with it. We're not the same as them. I can see the play, ladies and gentlemen. I can see it, mate. And I think in terms of this stuff and horrific acts like this that have happened in London yesterday, this can become more regular, mate. More regular. And I've said as much on this show and on social media and in podcasts for the last 2-3 weeks. Expect it to ramp up. Since digital ID was announced in terms of it's coming in, weird hand signals and all that sort of stuff, you've already had Manchester with the attack at the synagogue. You've had this attack now. You've had the ridiculous release of this migrant rapist. It will carry on, it will carry on, it will carry on. Because it pushes people, it pushes people against each other. That's what they want. I've seen it with this guy. This Afghan guy has obviously committed this heinous act. I've seen people online giving it the Muslims are... Whoa. This is one dude. He's not Muslims. Are you telling me that every single Muslim is walking around waiting for a dog walker to knife them? Let's not be ridiculous. Let's not be ridiculous. But this is the problem. And this is where you have the polarization and the left and right and the black and white, and there's nothing in the middle. So you have one side saying that every migrant that comes over is a doctor or an engineer, and the other side saying that every migrant that comes over is just waiting to knife a dog walker. Neither of those things are true. Most fit into the middle. But we don't do nuance and we don't do shades of grey, do we? It's ludicrous. And there's a reason for that, because nuance and shades of grey don't fight against each other. Polarization fights against each other, which is why you'll have protests at a migrant hotel over a migrant who's raped a 14-year-old kid, like at the Bell Hotel, and you'll have counter-protests. Who's counter-protesting that? Have you seen those people? I know, they're protesting against the rape of a kid. Oh, it's gross, isn't it? What? That is mad, isn't it? That is mad. But then, to be fair, I remember being at COVID protests against the tyranny, and you had people counter-protesting that. Were you begging for more tyranny? Idiot. This is why we need to be streetwise, folks, because they want us to fight against each other. They don't want us to look above and look at who's pulling the strings at both sides, who's actually got the door wide open, who's allowing it to happen. What did our intelligence... lack of intelligence agencies know about this dude? Because as soon as it's happened, they already know who he is and they know how he got here. Madness, folks. Madness. Anyway, this is the end of the free social media Spotify section. You can head over to iconic.com for the rest of the episodes. Free, of course, and the direct link is below.